I think it's easy to see why Blaze the Cat remains a great Sonic character, and an undeniable favourite within the community. Conceptualized as a dimensional parallel to Sonic, Blaze's development from a self-reliant, closed-off introvert to a princess learning to trust others and accept their aid in Sonic Rush demonstrated just how much we can all relate to her struggles and triumphs. As such, Blaze quickly rose as a character that many have held close to their hearts ever since her first appearance in 2005. Despite not appearing frequently in the mainline games as of the last decade, the occasional focus on her livelihood and how she perseveres to ensure the safety of the Soul Dimension in the IDW comics continues to highlight her virtuous nature and concern for those she holds dear. In today's analysis of Blaze's character arcs throughout Rush and Rush Adventure, we'll take a closer look at her specific struggles, what these can reveal about her psychology, and what they might help us learn about our own, somewhat unconscious tendencies relating to coping with stress. We'll also explore how what may seem like a regression of Blaze's character in Rush Adventure actually exemplifies the true non-linear progression of healthily dealing with the weight of responsibility. With that all said, let's get started.
I said I would defeat him!
Stop it! This isn't going to change anything!
What do you know? I am the guardian of the Soul Emeralds. It is a fate that forces me to live with my curse, my flames. Because of my powers, I have always been alone. It's also why I must do this alone. It is my responsibility.
I admire your fortitude, but carrying the entire world on your shoulders?
Enough!
Not too bad.
I must save the Soul Emeralds. I must.
A bit overzealous, aren't we? But it seems like she's had a rough past. Hey, don't bite off more you can chew. And be yourself. Don't need to do everything on your own.
Blaze!
Perhaps you're right. I can rely on friends if I let myself.
Great! I'm Sonic, Sonic the Hedgehog. It's nice to meet you.
I'm Blaze. It's nice to meet you too.
As these scenes hopefully summarize, Blaze's whole character arc was centered around her not being able to trust others for help, and only deciding to accept this help from Sonic and his friends by the end of the game. But there's actually a lot more from this that we can uncover about Blaze than what's at face value. For one, there are a lot of instances throughout the adventure where she demonstrates she's very reserved, reflective, and really goal-oriented. I think the examples that show this most clearly are the times whenever Blaze meets the other characters for the first time, immediately considers her first impressions of them, and thinks about how she conducts herself in comparison, or whether she has the same objective as the others. For example, upon encountering Cream, Blaze notes how friendly she is, and is very surprised at the fact that she's willing to invite her over to her house despite only just meeting. Vanilla consequently extends her kindness by offering Blaze to have some tea, and she begrudgingly accepts while quietly ruminating over the fact that she needs to find the Soul Emeralds and save her dimension instead of wasting time. Now, I hope I'm not the only one who thinks this, but these observations tell me that Blaze seems predominantly quite introverted. A famous Swiss psychiatrist called Carl Jung describes introversion as a psychological orientation where an individual's psychic energy is directed inward. According to Jung, this usually entails being reserved and reflective, and having a preference for avoiding social situations in order to recharge. This differs for extroverts, who often direct their psychic energy outward by being outgoing, talkative, and recharging energy through social activity. Still, it's important to note that Jung emphasizes individuals exhibit both introversion and extroversion. It's just that one or the other becomes more apparent depending on the individual situation. I'll admit, I'm definitely someone who identifies as an introvert, and I find that a lot of my habits and tendencies are often useful. For instance, being reflective and goal-oriented is a good thing whenever I have research reports or essays to complete and deadlines to meet for university. But these traits do indeed have detrimental downsides. The one that I think Blaze has gotten her fair share of experience from is the fact that being too goal-oriented can make you run the risk of being more susceptible to tunnel vision. Of course, the only thing that was really at the forefront of Blaze's mind the whole time was her goal of finding the soul emeralds. She tuned out everything and everyone around her to concentrate on her task, and became more impatient and unstable the longer she went without having all 7 emeralds. This is exactly what tunnel vision is. It's hyperfixating on an aspect of your situation that's the cause of your stress. For Blaze, the stress of having such responsibility as guardian really got to her, so she displaced and vented out her frustrations to Sonic just before they fought each other. Blaze had lost sight of the bigger picture, but luckily didn't end up paying the price for it in the end with the acceptance of support from Sonic and the others. Certainly, this version of Blaze from Sonic Rush likely found certain social situations draining, resorting to tunnel vision in perhaps quick and unconscious ways, and seeing it as the best thing to do in the spur of the moment. Blaze had to deal with being flung into a whole other unfamiliar dimension, as well as use a lot of energy to be able to process all of her new, quick encounters with Sonic's friends. It makes sense that she would attempt to block this all out to try to lessen her cognitive load, though in reality, it caused Blaze more stress, as I have previously outlined. Research on tunnel vision has found that it often can result in reduced situational awareness, where an individual fails to account for other people's perspectives or other factors that can better help one work through a problem or work towards a goal. In Blaze's case, she tried to convince herself that she could solve her problems solely in her own way, and was reluctant to rely on Sonic, Tails, Amy, Knuckles, or Cream. So we've established Blaze's introverted nature and how she had a bad habit of getting tunnel vision. We'll next take a look at what Blaze learns from this hurdle in her journey, and what we can learn from her example.
I understand now. My inherent power over fire. As princess, it is my duty to protect the soul emeralds. But because of my duty, I shut people out and kept to myself. By trying to make it solely my responsibility, I almost put my world in danger. But then...
You need to be true to yourself.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Both Eggmen knew the secret of the emeralds, right? It's why this world didn't completely fall apart when the emeralds were together. Everything should be fine since I have the 7 Chaos Emeralds. As long as the person holding the emeralds can control them and knows how to use them, nothing can go wrong. And Blaze, now you have that power. You understand what I mean, right?
I'll see you again. Sayonara, Sonic the Hedgehog.
I think this was a really fitting end to Blaze's arc in Sonic Rush. She came to understand that even with all the responsibility laid on her, She can't solely be expected to shoulder all this herself. She even comes to accept her pyrokinesis as a gift, not a curse. And I think it's important we explore this further since it plays into how she's able to have trust in Sonic and the others. According to the Brady Game's official strategy guide for Sonic Generations, Blaze was mocked and teased by others for being unable to control her powers, and this was what initially caused her to become withdrawn and decide to tend to her responsibilities as the Soul Dimension's princess alone. Not only was she seen as a social outcast in this sense, but this treatment may have led her to also somewhat see herself as a burden. I think this can adequately account for the real reason why Blaze insisted that she did things on her own terms. By assuring herself that she would get things done in the way she perceives they should be, she would be unconsciously convincing herself that her contributions matter to her kingdom and people, and hence silently persuading herself that she wasn't the social outcast that everyone at the time saw her as. During Blaze's monologue to herself at the end of Rush, she recalls Sonic saying to her that as long as she truly understands how to control the Soul Emeralds, nothing can go wrong. Sonic also reassures Blaze that now she has this power. He doesn't really elaborate on this, but the way Blaze's character arc has unfolded really lends itself to the explanation. By no longer shutting other people out and by learning to trust, she started to put less pressure on herself to fulfill her responsibilities alone and meet the perceived and albeit unreasonable expectations of society. No longer attempting to be a people pleaser has paved the way for Blaze's acceptance of her powers, the acceptance that her pyrokinesis is an important and valued part of her, which helps her wield and control the Soul Emeralds. And this in turn helps her to protect her dimension in the best way possible. This is all well and good, but how does Blaze make the decision to trust Sonic and the others in the first place? To this I'd say that Amy is the true catalyst here, and I'll explain why. The first time Blaze met her, she observed how Amy was being very open about her emotions. They were emotions for Sonic, but nonetheless, Amy was being open and honest to herself and others in this regard by admitting these feelings. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first time during the story where Blaze begins to consider another character's perspective, considering for a moment that maybe she should be honest with herself and acknowledge that relying on others doesn't do any harm. Lo and behold, she ends up doing just that the next time she bumps into Amy. Blaze had internalized Amy's words enough by this point that it enabled her to understand how to be true to herself and accept Sonic's help during the finale. You would think that this version of Blaze stayed true to the lessons she's learned, but as the tension between her and Marine would show during Rush Adventure, Blaze succumbs to her old tunnel vision mindset, but not in the exact same way as before. She trusts Sonic and Tails' motives and abilities, demonstrating some consistency with her Rush character arc, but butts heads with Marine and disregards her perspective quite frequently throughout Rush Adventure. This was mainly due to the fact that Blaze thought of Marine as too naive and inexperienced to help stop the threats and the two Eggmen, and this was what caused Blaze to single Marine out towards the end in quite an explosive outburst. Luckily, Marine proved herself and helped to save the day. Blaze humbly acknowledges this, leading her to make amends with Marine, and as we can see from the IDW comics, the two nowadays get on really well. Marine even seems to have become Blaze's right-wing raccoon, who, along with Garden, was left in charge of the Soul Dimension and Emeralds in Blaze's absence. I wouldn't blame you for thinking the way Blaze behaved in Rush Adventure came across as regressing her character growth from the previous game. But at the same time, I don't quite see eye to eye with this. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you might already know the reason why. I think this inconsistency in Blaze serves as a reminder that we ourselves won't get things right all the time, even when we know how best to go about something. We aren't perfect, far from it, and that's okay. What's important is that we constantly make an effort to be better individuals. I've been thinking about Blaze for a while, whenever I've had time in my busy schedule, and a certain situation I found myself in a couple of weeks ago really opened my eyes to how much I relate to Blaze's struggles, and how much I look up to her determination to be a better version of herself. Since returning to university, I've been working with my peers, two of which happen to be good friends of mine, to design and conduct a study into why we prefer certain music genres. We also had to collaboratively write an initial report of our progress for our supervisor, but the only time we were told to do this was the very same day that the report was due, and keep in mind this report had to be pretty lengthy. With how worked up I get over deadlines, I instantly broke down. I seemed composed on the outside, but I really wasn't on the inside, and without even knowing it, I never once listened to the ideas of one of my friends. During the moments our group was scrambling to get the report written, I didn't even notice that my friend was trying to give suggestions, or that I had unintentionally ended up making her feel like her contributions didn't mean anything. There was only one thing on my mind, and that was the deadline. Thankfully, we were able to meet this deadline, and my friend forgave me. But I forgot how to be open to other perspectives. I forgot how to trust my friend. So, what exactly am I trying to get at? The main message I want to get across is that we can't be expected to handle the weight of our responsibilities alone. Doing so can be costly for us and for those we may unintentionally hurt as a result. Blaze is a Sonic character who I think best exemplifies this lesson through her own imperfect character arcs during Rush and Rush Adventure. Just as she did, we need to learn to understand when we should take a step back, breathe, and reevaluate a stressful situation. 9 times out of 10, there's gonna be a better way to go about it, and that would include relying on others for help. Due to obstacles like tunnel vision, we might not get this right every time, but what matters is that we admit this to ourselves and strive to be better individuals in the future. I'm sure Blaze would agree that these are very important steps in dealing with the weight of responsibility. No one's getting left behind, and we'll be ready for a new venture. Thanks for sticking around to the end, everyone. That's it for today. If you've been wondering, I've been keeping healthy and well, and I've always been looking forward to working on this video during my weekends, despite my university workload turning into a backlog. Though having said that, words can't describe how grateful I am for you guys bearing with me for what's basically been 2 months. I knew I needed some help to add a special touch to this video for you guys to enjoy. I want to give a massive thank you to Lapis the Wolf, Mr. Lag, and Nokai for lending their voices as Blaze, Sonic, and Cream respectively. They really brought the Sonic Rush cutscenes to life. I'll leave full credits and links to their channels in the video description below, so please go support and subscribe to them. They're super talented content creators and voice actors. As for my fortnightly upload schedule, that's basically gone out the window, and all I can say for now is that we'll probably be discussing Rouge next time. But rest assured, the next video is coming at some point. I'm just not sure when, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed today's video, consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth takes on the Sonic characters just like this one. Anyways, thanks again everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your day or night. Take care.